This is an Indian story called A Parrot Called Hiraman. Hiraman, in fact. Very sorry. A Parrot Called Hiraman. A bird catcher. Hang on, I just need to adjust the recording level because I have no idea if it does record as it should. 1 second. Do you record as you should? Do you record as you should? Do you record as you should? Probably. Alright. Let's assume it does. A parrot called Hiraman. A bird catcher and his wife were always in want. One day his wife said to him, "I'll tell you why you are poor. It's because you sell every bird you catch. If we ate some of these birds, we might have better luck. That's what they say. So, let's cook and eat whatever birds you catch today." The birdcatcher agreed. So the two of them went bird-catching with their limed rods and nets, but on that day they caught nothing till sundown. Then, just as they were returning home, they caught a beautiful gem-green parrot called a Hiraman, a native of the Molucca Islands. The birdcatcher's wife took the terrified bird in her hands and felt it all over and said, "Oh, this is such a tiny bird, it would hardly be a mouthful. There is no use killing it." The Hiraman said, "Well, no, of course there is no use killing me, mother. Do not kill me. Take me to the king and sell me. He'll give you a lot of money." The couple were taken aback on hearing the parrot speak, and when they recovered from their astonishment, they asked the bird what price they should set. Well, very reasonable and very business-minded people. The Hiraman answered, "Oh, leave that to me. When the king asks my price, just say the bird will tell you its own price, and then I'll mention a large sum." So the birdcatcher took the bird to the palace the next day and offered it for sale. The king, delighted by the beauty of the green bird, his emerald green beauty, asked him what he would take for it. The man said, "His Highness may kindly ask the bird. It will tell you." "What, can the bird speak?" said the king, and turned to the bird half in jest and asked, "Well, Hiraman, what is your price?" The Hiraman said, "Oh, please your majesty, my price is 10,000 rupees. Do not think the price is too high. Count out the money to this man. I'll be of great service to your majesty." The king laughed and said, Of what service can you be to me, little bird?" "Your majesty will see that in due time," said the Hiraman. The king was amazed by the way the bird talked to him, and he ordered his treasurer to count out the sum of 10,000 rupees to the bird-catcher. Now, the king had 6 queens, but he was so taken up with the bird that he almost forgot their existence. His days and nights were spent in the company not of the queens, but of his bird. The Hiraman not only replied intelligently to every question, but recited to him the names of the 330 million gods of the Hindu pantheon, the hearing of which is itself an act of piety. The queens felt quite neglected by the king, became jealous of the bird, and decided to kill it. It was some time before they got an opportunity, as the bird was the king's inseparable companion. One day the king went out hunting and was away for 2 days. The 6 queens thought this was their chance to put an end to the bird, and said to one another, "We'll go and ask the bird which one of us is the ugliest of all in its eyes, and whoever is judged by the bird to be the ugliest shall strangle it." Then they went into the room where the bird was. But before the queens could put any question, the bird sweetly and piously recited the names of the 330 million gods and goddesses. The hearts of the 6 queens melted into tenderness, and they came away without doing any harm to the bird. The following day their jealousy and ill will returned, and they called themselves fools for being so charmed by the bird. So they steeled their hearts against all pity, and went there, this time, determined to kill it at once. "Oh, Hiraman," they said, "we hear that you are a very wise bird, and your judgments are always right. Please tell us which of us is the prettiest and which the ugliest." The bird, knowing their evil designs, said to them, "Well, how can I answer your question when I'm in a cage? To make a proper judgment, I must look minutely at each of you, limb by limb, front and behind. If you wish to know what I think, you must first set me free." At first the women were afraid to set the bird free, lest it should fly away. On second thoughts, they set it free after shutting all the doors and windows of the room. But the clever bird had examined the room already and seen a water passage in one corner through which it could escape. When the queens had repeated their question several times, the bird said, "Ugh, talk of your beauty! There's more beauty in the little toe of the princess who lives beyond the 7 seas and the 13 rivers than in all 6 of you." The queens were furious to hear their beauty thus slighted, and they rushed towards the bird to tear it to pieces. But before they could reach it, it escaped through the water passage and took shelter in a woodcutter's hut nearby. When the king returned home from hunting, he did not find his Hiraman on its perch. He asked the queens, and they said they didn't know anything about it. He had the whole palace searched, but could not find his bird. He was grief-stricken, and began to say all day, "Oh, my Hiraman, where are you?" The ministers even feared for his sanity. They sent out town criers throughout the kingdom to proclaim by beat of drum that anyone who found the king's pet parrot would be rewarded with 10,000 rupees. The woodcutter heard the proclamation and happily brought the bird to the palace and got his reward. The king now heard from the parrot how the queens had tried to kill it. Mad with rage, he banished the 6 queens to the wilderness, where it was rumoured a few days later the wretched women were all devoured by wild beasts. After some time, the king said to the parrot, "Hiraman, you said that none of the queens had the beauty even of the little toe of the princess who lives beyond the 7 seas and the 13 rivers. Do you know how I can get to her?" The Hiraman said, "Of course I do. I can take you to the door of her palace, and if you will do as I tell you, you'll soon have her in your arms. Actually, she is waiting for you, though she doesn't know it." "I'll do whatever you tell me. Where do I begin?" "What you need is a pakshirai, a winged horse. If you can get one, you can ride on it, and we'll cross the 7 seas and 13 rivers in no time. I have, as you know, a large stable of horses. Why don't we go now and see if we have any of the pakshirai breed?" The king and the Hiraman went to the royal stables and examined all the horses. The Hiraman passed by all the fine-looking horses and lighted upon a lean, wretched-looking pony and said, "Oh, that's the horse I want. It is a genuine pakshirai, but it must be fed for 6 months with the finest grain before it can do what you want it to do." The king put the pony in a stable by itself and personally saw to it that it was fed every day with the finest grain of the kingdom. The pony rapidly changed its appearance, and at the end of 6 months had become a magnificent steed. The Hiraman looked it over and pronounced it fit for service. Then the parrot asked the king to order the royal silversmith to make some kais, fine grains of rice, out of silver. The silversmiths worked overtime and made a large quantity of silver kais. They were now ready for the aerial journey, when the Hiraman said to the king, "I must tell you one more thing. Please give the horse only 1 stroke of the whip at starting. If you give it more than 1, we will be stuck midway and never reach the palace. And when we return, after capturing the princess, then too you must whip the horse only once. If you whip it more than once, we will come only halfway." The king then mounted the pakshirai with the Hiraman and the bag of silver kais, and gently touched the animal once with his whip. The horse shot through the air with the speed of lightning, passed over many countries, crossed the 7 oceans and the 13 rivers, and landed that very evening at the palace gate of the beautiful princess. Now there was a tall tree near the gate. The Hiraman told the king to put the horse in the stable nearby, and then to climb the tree and hide himself in the branches. Then the bird took the silver kais, and with its beak began dropping kai after kai from the foot of the tree, all through the corridors, right up to the door of the bedroom of the princess of peerless beauty. Then it joined the king on the tree. Some hours after midnight, the princess's maid-servant, who slept in the same room, came out for something, opened the door, and found the silver kais. Ja. Eine Geschichte üben. And not knowing what they were, she showed them to her mistress, who was so struck by the appearance of the little silver bullets that she too came out and began picking them up. She saw a regular stream of them beginning at her door and going she knew not where. She knew then that something exciting was afoot. She went on picking up the bright shining pieces, and they led her through the corridors till she came to the foot of the tree. At once the king jumped down from the tree, all according to the bird's instructions, caught hold of her, and put her on his horse along with himself. The Hiraman perched on his shoulder. The king gently touched the horse just once with the whip, and they were whirled through space with the speed of lightning. But the king was so eager to get home quickly with his new won prize that he forgot, and whipped the horse again as he would any other. At once the horse was grounded outside a dense forest. "Oh, what have you done?" cried the Hiraman. "Did I not tell you never to whip the horse more than once? You whipped it twice, and we are done for. We may be stuck here till we die." But what was done was done. The Pakshirai had become powerless, and the party was stranded far from home. They got down from the horse and found the place utterly deserted. They ate some fruit and slept that night right there on the ground. Next morning it just happened that the king of that country came there to hunt. As he pursued a stag which he had pierced with an arrow, he came across the king and the princess. Struck almost blind by her dazzling beauty, he wanted her for himself. He whistled for help, and his attendants flocked around him. They seized the princess and carried her off with him, but not before putting out the king's eyes. The king, who had crossed 7 seas and 13 rivers for her sake, was left there, sightless and alone. Yet not alone, for the good Hiraman was with him. The princess was taken into the palace of the king, and with her went the pony. When the king came near her, she told him that she was observing a 6-month vow of devotion to Shiva, and that he must not come near her for those 6 months. She asked this because she knew it took 6 full months for the Pakshirai to recover its strength. Then she pretended to engage in religious ceremonies each day as part of her vow, and the king assigned a separate house for her. She took the Pakshirai with her and fed it the choicest grain of the kingdom. But she needed the Hiraman to help her, and thought of a ruse. She ordered her servants to scatter on the roof of her house heaps of rice, wheat, and all sorts of lentils as food for the birds. Thousands of birds came to the roof every day to take part in the feast. The princess looked among the birds every day for the Hiraman. But the good bird was stuck in the forest. It had to take care of itself, as well as the blinded king, and they both lived on fruit from various trees. The other birds would say to the parrot, "Oh, Hiraman, you are miserable here in the forest. Why don't you come with us for just a little while to that good lady's feast of grains? She scatters them for the likes of us every day. We go there every morning and eat our fill all day along with thousands of other birds." The shrewd parrot could guess who the pious lady was, and why she was throwing this open party for the birds, and decided to go with them one morning. The Hiraman saw the princess talk to her about the blind king, and told her how to cure him of his blindness, and how she could escape. This was the plan. As the 6 months had nearly gone by, the pony would soon be ready for flight. The king's blindness would be cured if the Hiraman could bring the fresh excrement of the chicks of Bihangama birds in the tree outside the gate of the princess's own palace beyond the 7 seas and the 13 rivers. So the very next morning the Hiraman started out, reached the spot that night, and waited for morning. At dawn it waited, well, it's very quick, that bird. At dawn it waited below the nest of the birds with a leaf in its beak and gathered the excrement of the chicks. Then it flew back over all the seas and the rivers and applied the precious excrement to the sightless sockets of the king's eyes. The king at once opened his eyes and saw. In a few days the Pakshirai was ready and in fine fettle. On the appointed day the princess escaped to the forest on the pony, picked up the king and the Hiraman, and all three reached the king's capital in no time. Whipped only once. The king and princess were soon married in a gorgeous ceremony and lived happily for a long time with many sons and daughters. The Hiraman was always with them, reciting the names of the 330 million gods of the Hindu pantheon.